Welcome to The Lumber Word, where industry veterans Matt Beamer, Greg Riley, and Ashley Buckhold dissect the world of commodity lumber each week. We bring you up-to-date insights on supply, demand, and market trends, sharing our trading expertise to benefit everyone in the supply chain. Join us for informative and entertaining discussions that guarantee to make you wiser about all things lumber.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of The Lumber Word. Looking forward to a great episode last week. Have a great guest this week. Any Carlo from HBS Dealer. Met Andy down at the LMC show a couple weeks ago in Houston. And before we started here, I was telling Greg and Matt how he was multitasking at 7:30 in the morning, taking pictures, typing articles, meeting deadlines, talking to everybody walking up to him, and didn't miss a beat. So, as I said, Andy's the LBM editor of HBS Dealer. Before that, Andy, hope I get this right, you were in National Home Center News, Home Channel News. You also worked for a New York-based builder and remodeler starting out, and wrote and managed some of the regional papers in those areas. So there's a million more things to talk about. So maybe I'll let you explain a little bit about HBS Dealer.
HBS Dealer is the most recent incarnation of what used to be Home Center News and Home Channel News. I was with the publication for about 7 years, from 2001 to 2007, 2008. And when I left to do some other things in the industry and write for some other publications, they changed their name to HBS Dealer, standing for Hardware and Building Supply Dealer, with the focus being on independent retail as well as mass home improvement retail. Prior to all of that, I worked for DM Custom Builders as a remodeler and home builder, and I did that for about 5 years, and I would moonlight as a newspaper reporter. Eventually, I married the two businesses together, the two trades together, after my right arm started to fall off, and I gave the biggest home run ever given up in Brooklyn via wiffle ball. I think it went 3 schoolyards. So I also learned I could only pitch for about an inning and a half in wiffle ball, and I was done. So it was like, that's it, man. Construction's over. Can't raise my right arm.
That's awesome. So I saw you at the LMC show, as we said, and were you just coming back from the show in Vegas?
That's correct.
Yeah, before that,
the International Builders Show for the entire thing. Red eye Thursday night into Friday morning into Newark. Drive home about 2 hours. Worked Friday. Was off to LMC in Houston Monday.
So how much are you on the road yearly? And what does that involve?
Well, I think the pratfall right now was show season. So you had all the cooperatives, Do It Best, Ace, Orgill having their shows. You had IBS. You had LMC. You had LMC's number one competitor, LBM Advantage, having their show. And I started the whole thing off in the beginning of February with Cameron Ashley, which has really gained steam in terms of attracting lumberyard owner customers. They're not members, they're customers. It's not a cooperative, it's a distributor. But the amount of lumberyards Cameron Ashley in 2024 was so much more significant than the last Cameron Ashley show I attended pre-COVID. It was right before, it was the year COVID hit. And again, I attended that show right before IBS. They've done their homework. They're doing a pretty good job.
Right on. I kind of was going through the last 6 months of your articles. You get involved in everything from data for all, which we'll talk about in a bit, housing starts, builders' confidence, everything. So you're looking at economic data. You're talking to builders. Are you talking to retail yards? You're talking to buying groups. You're looking at, I read your one article about, LMC and the truss locations and the component locations. I mean, you're getting pretty much exposed to everything on the building and hardware side of things.
And distributors, distributors have almost, in some facets, changed their identity. In some cases, they're selling directly and to lumber yards, so, they go both to the job site and to the lumber yard. So they've changed as well.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that because we had a guest on from Wisconsin a couple months ago who's a large builder and framer and started buying direct from some distributors. And it depends upon what state you're in, but that can cause some major disruptions in the supply chain sometimes.
Yeah, I think they're trying to figure out their models.
Mm-hmm.
So different strokes are different folks. And you have the roofing guys who are competing against LBM yards because there are a lot of LBM yards, lumber yards that sell roofing, and you have roofing distributors. And well, who do they sell? They sell directly to the builder.
Right.
So
Right.
So Andy, you've been on the road for the last 6-8 weeks, and you've seen a lot. You talked to a lot of people. If you were going to sum up the industry, where it's at right now, where it's going in the next, 6 to 12 months, what would that be? What would your summary of the industry be?
The industry's optimistic, particularly the manufacturers and vendors. They pump out new sustainable products with no limit in sight, it seems like. And we saw yesterday housing numbers really rocket up. That was way beyond my expectations to see more than 10% growth in housing starts. We saw growth in permits. We saw staggering growth in the Midwest in terms of housing starts. They're attributing it to the lack of existing home sales on the market. Mortgage rates dropping a little bit lower, although I don't see them that much lower. I checked them today, and I looked at the last Freddie Mac numbers. It was just below 7%. It was like 6.7 or so, which isn't much lower than what people were complaining about a year ago or 6 months ago.
But, if you think about it on a long-term average, that's not an unreasonable rate. I mean, we've talked on our show as those of us that are a little older, our first mortgages were in double-digit numbers.
Right. Let's see. The 30-year is 6.74, and the 15-year is 16.16 as of March 14th. That was the mortgage rates. And the other side, you have inflation above 3, and it's about 3.2. And you have the Fed deciding if they're going to hike up interest rates again. But where they get that 3% inflation price, I'm not certain, because that 3% hike, the grocery stores haven't received the memo. They're still well above 3%. I mean, and what I wonder is if they've gotten us to be in this world where, look, these prices are hiked up about 20%, some of the milk, eggs, what have you. If they get us to pay for that, does that mean they keep them there?
Well, I mean, that's what we've talked about that, when we talk about inflation, the rate of increase has slowed from what it was a year and a half ago. But, so that's still, prices are still moving higher. They're just moving higher at a lower rate. They're not going lower. And, we keep telling people on the show is, hey, the only way you're going to see any significant price declines or over a time is having a severe economic downturn. And we were talking before when you walked is with stock market making new all-time highs, it's hard to rationalize how you see some huge economic calamity coming, which is going to cause a big recession. I know there's lots of economists out there that are predicting it, but right now there is a bit of a disconnect. Hey, Ash, one thing I wanted to highlight on housing starts, which it was a blowout number. I think a lot of it can be attributed to the weather. We had an extremely mild winter through the Midwest. Midwest housing starts were up 44%. And so, I mean, surprisingly, the West was up 46, Matt. And because the West actually had some tougher weather, so that was kind of surprising. The other big dichotomy.
Well, they're also probably including Arizona and Nevada in that, and they didn't get hammered as bad. So
yeah, I mean the other dichotomy, which is really driving things, and we've talked about it, is single family housing starts are up 27.5 and multifamily are down 34. Those numbers also translate over into the permit numbers. It's going to be interesting to see if that trend continues to hold up, because it obviously has big significance for our industry and our business.
Greg, the one thing, Midwest was a big number. Did you see the Midwest number year over year? 80.5% year over year. Am I looking at that number right?
For starts?
Starts. Yeah, Andy was in his cost soared upward to 40.2% and grew 80.5% on a year over year basis.
Midwest.
That stuck out to me.
Yeah. Year over year. Which, you compare that. Last year we had a really severe February. The weather was brutal, right? It was cold. It was snowy. This year, there was 70s in Chicago in February.
Yeah. The other thing that stuck out when I looked at the report yesterday was the completion rate.
Oh, boy, yeah.
The completion rate, remember last year when we were talking, the completion rate couldn't poke above 1.2, 1.3. I think if I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, we're at 1.7 completions. So I guess I asked the question, how did we complete so many units like that?
I think Greg hit it on the head with the weather.
Had to be, right?
I'm in the Northeast, and between let's just say the calendar year, January through today, past mid-March, I would have had maybe 4, 5 significant snowfalls of 6, 12 inches or better. I think I might have had one that was gone within a day, Yeah. And the ground has not really frozen. It's been so mild. That ground is very diggable. That ground is soft. So I think that's allowed people to just keep on plowing through.
That's one of the things is, we were watching also with the completions is, the units under construction, and they've held the high 1.6 to 1.7. The interesting thing is even with that blowout number on completions, under construction still 1.66 million units, which is great.
So builders' confidence, the day before, Andy, builders' confidence.
That's right. It comes out always right the day before around 10 a.m.
So I guess it's pretty significant when you're at 50 and you go to 51, right?
Yeah, it is significant. 50 is the
it's like Spinal Tap when they go to 11.
That is correct. Yes.
just a little bit higher.
That's right.
I just need a little bit more.
That's right. Don't even look at it.
Oh man.
Yeah, because 50 is the in between mark. That's where it's good, bad, positive, negative, yes, no. 50 is where dealers are divided on whether conditions are better or not. And once you hit 51, well, more dealers say conditions are better than they were. Just a few months ago, we were in the 40s, So to get up to 51, that's the first time it had reached that number since last summer, since July of last year. Mm-hmm. It's been declining. So we've seen 4 months of improvements, which have kind of coincided with somewhat declining mortgage rates, as well as the growth of the disappearing existing home. They have all coincided at the same time. The National Association of Realtors, which puts out existing home sales, they have even said, there's just not enough homes on the market and they're snapped up quick. So rather than getting to a bidding war, people are looking to new construction.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about 2 things here. The multifamily, Matt, you deal with a lot of multifamily and single family. Was that a surprise with multifamily being down so low? And what does everybody think 2024, the ratio will be of multifamily to single family?
Multifamily is obviously got some challenges with the higher cost of entry into the construction side of it. It costs more to finance the project at the bank level. The dirt costs more, the labor costs more. Materials necessarily don't cost more. At least lumber isn't that much more, but other things might cost more. Like the plumbing and the wiring, and maybe some of their labor costs. I know the permitting fees for what these municipalities are charging these days are not going down. You know what it costs to just start a dialogue with the city of Portland to do like a remodel or our new construction project for a residential homeowner guy? $2,000 just to have him pick up the phone and talk to you about starting the process. It cost me 7 years ago $20,000 to build an addition on my home. That was the permit cost for Portland, and it was only like a 1,000 square foot footprint. It wasn't like some giant behemoth type thing. It was a reasonably sized addition. Anyways, back to your original question, the cost of entry and the cost of just that business model is up. It's hurting that end of the spectrum. Also, rents are down, and there's been more apartment completions here in the last couple of years than now. The home completions are starting to catch up, but the completions on apartments were ahead of the curve on. That's what they were building the fastest, and now they're starting to slow down. The other thing that's hurting it is the big builders are building to rent, and so you can rent a house. It'll be a little Cracker Jack box, but you can rent a house for $1,800 a month and have a small yard and maybe a driveway and a small garage, but you'll have like some semblance of privacy. Or you can go live in a unit with 800 of your closest friends all stacked on top of each other. So I think that puts a little bit of a crimp in the multifamily thing, and it also favors the single family home builder for now. My question is, what happens when the wheel stops spinning? And like you play Ring Around the Posy or that game.
Rosie.
Yeah, Ring Around the Rosie.
A whole lot of Rosie.
Yeah.
Yeah, the AC/DC version. So when the wheel stops spinning, what are those builders going to do with all the home inventory and land inventory that they now own? Right? I mean, I don't really understand the long-term concept there. I can see the short-term concept, the 5 and 10 year window. I understand. What about the 20 and 30 year window? They got to pay maintenance fees. It's I don't know. Is that going to be excess inventory that now enters the market as homes for sale, right, in the future? Because that's
I think
ultimately
so. I
they
think
will.
that might be the business model. Once they get a little worn down, they can go a couple routes. One, selling them, and B, get some kind of government tax credit in regard to low income.
That makes a lot of sense.
The apartment structure, the apartment multifamily, the NAHB, the National Association of Home Builders, argued for a few years that it's just been overbuilt since the 70s. And exactly what you said, Matt, in the last few years, particularly, I don't know about you guys, in my region in the Northeast, I've seen so much multifamily development overshadowing single family, where there's just not the land and the plots, but they could buy an old farm and boom, throw up a ton of multifamily and mixed use. And now I think, as you said, it's catching up, it's winding down, and they don't even have the people to fill those spaces anymore. As Harvard Center for Joint Housing Studies has said, I think in the last month, over 40% of Americans can't even afford rent at this point. So who are you building for?
Yeah, now you add to that the unused office space that people are looking to convert over into residential construction. At least the unused office space that you can convert over that's doable at a cost. One other thing that came out this week or last week, just a quick, it may or may not involve the lumber side of things here, but it's confusing to me. The National Association of Realtors, that whole deal that went down with the 6% commission. Can anybody unpack that for me to tell me what actually happened?
I'll make a pass and then Andy can correct me. This was a way for the National Association of Realtors to get out of their financial liability while apparently on the surface placating. There's going to be more lawsuits around this. They didn't really do that much other than save themselves from further litigation, potentially.
Yeah, it's interesting that Warren Buffett did not settle. He has a concurrent lawsuit against Berkshire Hathaway, and they're fighting it. They're like, yeah, no, you can go ahead and keep suing us. So there's been multiple lawsuits to multiple different avenues on this buyer's brokerage fee. I don't know about you guys. Have you paid 6% on any of your home
Yeah,
buying, selling transactions
I
in the
paid
last 10
6%.
years?
I paid.
I haven't.
I paid 6%, 6%. I mean,
I haven't paid 6% since the early 2000s. I mean, I negotiated 4%, and the last two homes I bought, and whoop-de-doo. So
yeah.
I don't think it really matters that much in the long run. Is it going to have much of an effect on the buying and selling of homes? It might hurt some realtor ladies. 2/3 of the people that are realtors are women, and if they're not going to get paid as a buyer's agent, is that a good policy?
I
You're
mean,
taking money
the
out of.
average commission for buying and selling a home in other Western countries is between 1.5% and 2%. It's not 6%.
Right.
Honestly, it's hard to imagine is if you do all the research, you do all the internet
Right.
work, and then you like go somewhere and then you have to pay a buyer's broker commission. Reminds me a lot of if renting an apartment in New York. It's like you go out and you got to find and you got to like do all this stuff and scramble, and then you have to pay a broker's fee to somebody who did nothing.
Yeah, well, I don't know about
They're
you,
like
but
going what, and you wonder why things are too expensive, right? You wonder why there's an affordability issue.
I wonder why people don't just negotiate a flat fee. I mean, if you're talking about an apartment in New York, it's probably a seven-figure purchase. It's not going to be cheap, right?
No, I'm
So,
talking about renting an apartment in New York. You pay a broker's fee, even though they don't do
oh,
anything.
okay. Well,
My
Right,
question,
Andy?
my question was around: will that affect anything to do in less homes or more homes being sold?
Zero.
it
Zero
won't
fault.
matter.
Okay, I think
Yeah, I
that
would agree.
that
I
makes
think what that is kind of a strange, dirty little story that took place around the outskirts of the industry, where they're getting so chaotic that the president of the NAR, I believe, resigned not long ago, about 2 months ago, because of folks making some statements toward her. So she left and disappeared. So
well. Let's jump into the part where we talk a little bit about the market. Everybody ready to do that? So
Whoa.
last week when we talked, the lumber market was a little slower, but not moving down at all. We're going to put OSB and lumber in two different things because OSB is just ridiculous right now. The price that spot market OSB is trading relative to what it's being reported at, and I I don't even know how to unpack that because it blows my mind some of the premiums I'm hearing on that. But with lumber, it seemed to be that there was some good volume done over the last few months, and last week was a digestion period. I think personally, sitting here, probably quoted more lumber than I had in a long time last week, and didn't have the good hit ratio of actually getting business. Started out this week like that, but it seems to be picking up slightly. So, Matt, in your world where you live in the Western spruce U.S. lumber market, the mills that you all have, and then your Texas market, what are you seeing this week?
It's definitely a digestion week, so we expected probably a little bit more volume this week than what we're seeing. But as of today, the volume's perked up just a little bit. So yesterday and the day before were pretty quiet. As I said last week on the show, the mills out west have built significant order files into April. And so you're not going to really find a lot of mills in the west that are wanting to wheel and deal on anything right now. Maybe a one-off here and there, but not any real major volume of any liquid items. And so we have kind of a bit of a standoff, I would say. That customers have specific needs that they want. And right now, they really want the focus is on 2x4 and 2x6 16s. Also, getting a lot of inquiry for 2x6 10s and 12s. The wide lumber 2x12, really good tallies of 2x12 are highly sought after and hard to find. There's lots of crummy tally 2x12 production that people want to sell, but what people want to buy is heavy 16 and 20. So right now, the trick in the market out here in the West is matching up what people want to buy with what we actually have left to sell, because we've got these deep order files. So there's a bit of a standoff. And my Texas business it was slow yesterday and the day before, but it's busy today. So that's good for me. I'm leaving town I won't be on the podcast next week. I'm going to be on spring break skiing with the kids up in the mountains, but I'm glad to get the business.
You guys got some good snow? You got good snow up there?
We actually it just was beautiful here the last couple of days. I mean, I did a bunch of yard work. I even got a suntan. I'm sure you can tell the glow. But
you do have that glow for sure.
I'm not paper white anymore, but it was 70 degrees here for like 4 days in a row, and it's going to be snowing over in Sun River in Central Oregon next week. So
Hey, Matt,
back in the 20s.
California market. I wanted to follow up because we haven't talked about that in a few weeks. Green and dry market. Is green still ripping over to California in those areas, or
it's good. We've reached new highs on the narrows here just yesterday. The order files are strong. They're basically, the premium lumber business has really shot through the roof here in the last 2 weeks. So we have really broken up mill lists and not a lot of options for the buyers. The buyers it's kind of a slow grind towards buying more of what we have, right? And less of what they need. So the mills seem to be winning the green Doug fir battle. Good for them. It's not unexpected. They've had like phenomenal weather in California here the last week and a half, and it's going to continue.
And when you said premium, I'm assuming you talked about it a few weeks ago. We're kind of getting into the heart of the home center business. You read reports.
End of February, you start hitting your stride, and it goes all the way through to past Memorial Day, and then summertime it slows a little bit, but it's still pretty good in the summer. The home center business is in full swing right now. It'll slow down after Memorial Day, and then it'll perk back up again in the fall. But we just had some home center people in our office this week, and from the home offices, they came out to visit. They told us they're busier than they expected, which they were expecting flat conditions this year. So
that's what they reported, right? That's what they were expecting.
And they're not flat; they're up, and so that's going to impact the lumber business, and it's impacting OSB right now, right? Because a lot of OSB gets shipped through that channel. Believe it or not,
it gets put on a VMI, right? So if
a massive amount of OSB goes through the home center channel,
that's right?
They move such a massive pile of sheets through the Home Depot and Lowe's and Menards system that make your head spin. But it's going to affect lumber too, because they stock lumber also. So some of the lumber that you think you should be able to buy for less in the next 60, 90 days is just won't even be available to you. And so there's my read on the market. That's going to have some impact on what I call out for the marry, date, and do not disturb segment.
So hey,
and Matt, do you attribute that shortage completely to how active and successful the home centers are right now? The mammoths. And people forget how much lumber they sell.
They suck up a lot of short lumber.
Yeah.
And in order for mills like Hampton to produce that much short lumber, we have to cut long lumber in half. It's not uncommon for us to cut 20s back to 10s or 8s and 12s. And so, those are lengths that people want to buy, right? Nobody really wants to buy 8s and 10s in the retail lumber market. They kind of shun them. They want to buy 12 and longer. They want to buy 16s. They want to buy 20s. Well, what happens when your mill's cutting your 16s and 20s in half to fulfill your obligations on your contracts for home center?
Yeah.
They're not there for the retail guy. And so, it not only does it affect the premium 92 and 5/8 and 96-inch stud market, it affects 2x8 18s and 20s, 2x6 18s and 20s, 16s also. Like, other lengths get affected when these platforms start ramping up, which is what's happening right now.
Great feedback, Matt.
Do you think the rise in home center business is, well, we've already talked about the mild weather that we've seen in the last few months. Do you think it's another byproduct in terms of why they are so busy as they are now? Do you think it's almost a COVID syndrome where people are staying home and working on their homes more than they might
No,
have?
I don't think it's COVID related. I think it's the realization that you're not going to sell your house
No, no, that's what I
that you
mean.
have a
That's
two
what
and
I
three
mean.
quarter
Yeah,
percent interest rate on. I mean, I'm a good
yeah,
example of that. I've got a house I bought in 2021 at 2 3/4 rate. I have no reason to move. So why not put a new hot tub in the back
right.
or make my fence fancier, put some new lighting. I mean, just little things like that. I
That's what
can't
I
be the
mean.
only.
Staying put
Yeah, I
and
think if you're
fixing it
staying
up.
put, then you'll spend a little bit of money. Plus, it's not like existing home values have dropped, right? And so if you wanted to take a
No,
home equity loan,
they haven't.
which you probably have some home equity if you haven't already done that yet. So
Matt, are you putting a James Brown hot tub in the back? In
no,
the
we talk about it. I've never done it. I don't know, dude. I'd rather have a pool, but right now I got 2 kids in college and a third one on the way to college.
Yeah, I was going to say,
That's all I care about at the moment.
But to Andy's point is, I was going to put something in a couple years ago, and I kind of like flailed around about it. I don't know if I'm going to. We got the permit. I've got a deck going in the back of the house this month
I thought you
because
rebuilt that yourself a few years back.
no, that's the porch.
Oh, okay.
I don't have a deck on the back of the house, and so I can give you a long short about these communities, how you have to it takes a year to get permitted and all that.
Oh
But
gosh.
I'm putting a deck in and and I'm replacing my brick paver driveway because we plan on staying, right? Or if we do want to sell someday, it's got to be done anyway. But I want it nice, so we're adding on to that. Craig, Euro Eastern spruce. I didn't mean to distract you. Your thought there.
no worries, no worries. I want to start off just like this, highlighting a little bit of production numbers for last year. North American lumber production last year totaled 57.5 billion, which was down 2.9%. But when you dig under, the numbers, yellow pine was basically flat. US West was down, marginally, but Canada was down. BC was down 12.6%. Eastern Canada was down 2.1%. So we contrast that. We know that Euro lumber last year, the numbers, it was marginally lower. The number that really blew my mind was when I looked at this, and the difference with 5 years ago, 2018 to 23, US production's up 7.1%, which means like yellow pine's probably up 10 and US West is down a few percent. Canada output is down 26.2%, 44% down in BC. I mean, like, we know it and we felt it, but it's like kind of staggering when you look
That's a big number.
I mean, it's huge. It's like, so I mean, BC used to be all the production, right? I mean, it dwarfed everybody. I mean, last year they did 6.8 billion board feet. The rest of the Eastern Canada did almost double that, did do double that, 13. But yellow pine, 22 billion board feet. Those numbers have just completely flip-flopped, which, when you look at the indexes and their printing numbers, and, US West numbers are up, spruce numbers are up, and yellow pine numbers, they firmed up a little with everything else, and now they're actually trading lower. We'll probably have to have a yellow pine guest on next week, Ash, to do a deep dive on that, huh?
Yeah, because I'm interested in, it gets back to the big box stores. Big box stores being busier isn't equating to more treaters buying pine, or there's enough pine out there where it's not making a dent in pricing, because every time it starts pine, it pulls right back again.
I think pine production's up enough where it probably is meeting demand and maybe
Gotta be.
slightly exceeding it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you remember like in like kind of those years on pine beetle when the cutting in BC was so heavy, the market just could never really get up, because every time it moved up a little bit, got hammered with more production, right? That's kind of the way I feel yellow pine is now. There's so much, there's at 22 billion board feet. We look at the other markets and we're saying there's supply push because of lower production. And we have the opposite in pine. So then the real question is going to be, as time goes by, how much more species swapping can there be when you're looking at when you're looking at the sharp differences in prices, when you can buy number 2 pine lumber cheaper than number 3 spruce. So it's a question. It's not an answer.
Good point, Greg.
Overall market, Ash, this week has been kind of a continuation of a consolidation. To Matt's point, mills have the strongest shipping file they've had probably in 18 months. And we're still, questionable in terms of where we are relative to cost of production. We're not at numbers that are going to incent people to make a lot more lumber. I think the wild card is how much inventory build has there been in the pipeline, and is it enough for the marketplace to stay away from the mills to exhaust their shipping file, or does the market have to come back sooner? Typically, first quarter is a very low production quarter in U.S. West and Western Canadian and overall because of weather. Weather hasn't been a factor this year. Typically, Q2 is higher production numbers in Q1 because the weather's better, the days are longer, all that. I'm not so sure we're going to get much of an increase in production. So how that balances out is going to be a real key. We've seen the high of the year in lumber prices. Stand by. We will be having one of the much heralded LinkedIn polls will be coming out. We encourage everyone to, invite your friends and everyone to vote on it. We'll share that feedback next week.
2 things I want to talk about: premium lumber in euro. I mean, euro arguably comes across premium, most of it premium quality. Joe was on from LMC.
Even the low grades premium, Ash. You know what?
It's crazy.
We sell no grade stamp premium lumber.
It's interesting. Joe Pepe was on last week from LMC and was saying how he projected to be harder getting it. And from what Matt's saying here about the home centers taking a lot more of the premium grade stuff, we've noticed an uptick in a lot of people wanting contracts on euro, wanting just to have a source for euro because everybody wants it. And Greg and I talked to a bunch of the European producers, and Greg, this is my feeling. We're just not getting what we're getting supply, but we're not expecting more, if that makes sense. Maybe it's a function of where the market is, because as we always say, Greg, how much lumber do you have if the market is going up?
Oh, you never have enough.
Right. And if it's going down, you have one car. One car is way too much.
Yeah, so way too much.
That's interesting. And then let's just touch real quick. Futures March expired last week. And we got May and June carrying pretty significant premiums to the spot market right now. Greg, June, you said 610 right now in June. Does that sound right? July. I'm sorry, there is no June.
May 608, July 620. May expired at $560, which, obviously there was a great opportunity for those people that are basis traders to take delivery or EFP May and I mean March and sell May.
I know some guys that EFP'd May or March.
Yeah. And so, I mean, listen, those are, that's a conservative strategy as a way to lock in, manage profits. It's not a home run, but it's just really good business. I guess my overall sense of the market is that as long as May is carrying this premium, that's going to be supportive to the market. I mean, listen, you can buy all sorts of cash lumber today and hedge it in May and be guaranteed to make above whatever your normal wholesale distribution margin is.
Not only that, Greg, but the mills can sell it too. And then they can pretend that's their order file when we get into the back half of April and into May, if they sincerely sell it with the idea that they're willing to ship it. Since it's a truck contract and it's open up to East and West and hem fir, I would think that every whitewood spruce producer in North America would be looking at May right now as a really good mill order.
So, Matt, answer me this. Today, coastal hem fir 2x4s delivered Chicago. What's the market price?
$590, same as spruce.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm just saying is if you look at it from a print basis, spruce is $570, right? So
right, but I'm talking 8 to 20. 8 to 16 is worth less just because the 18s and 20s are carrying such a high value. So let's just say that
an 8 to 16 contract, though.
Let's say it averages about $580. Okay, and you're
Yeah.
you're at 610, you got a $30 premium to sell it. And
Yeah.
and
It's not as good as the
maybe it's
$48 one that you had on late last week, right?
no, but it's still enticing. And then if you're looking at July at 620,
Yep.
that's also enticing. What's September, Greg?
September last was stand by. September $630.
Yeah, I mean, what mill wouldn't want to go into the crappiest time of the year with some $630 lumber sold?
With that, let's say, guys, let's jump into the favorite
Just a thought.
segment.
I mean,
Let's-
hey, you're just asking the question, right? You're just asking a question. I understand.
Let's
Things that
looks
make you go,
juicy.
huh?
So who wants to go first on marry, date, or dump on the products? I think I went first last time.
I'll go first.
All right, go for it, Matt.
I want to marry 2x4 92 and 5/8 Western species studs. They're significantly cheaper than 9s. And I like 92 and 5/8 and 8-foot trims because the people that have the kicking stick right now is a single family builders, and they're building smaller homes, and so you're getting more usage of 92 and 5/8 than you did in previous years. They're cost conscious, and that's a cost effective item. It's also something you can buy relatively. It's still one of the items that you can negotiate with sawmills on, and you can sell the back months against it and pick up a tremendous basis. So I like that. I like 92 and 5/8. And then I'm kind of dating and / dumping 104s. I mean, I think 104s are still liquid, but they've gone up $100 from the beginning of their rise to today. What the mills want you to pay for them today is significantly higher. I don't really think there's going to be a lot of business at that level, but I think there's plenty of business somewhere in between where we started and where we are right now. So, and also if those deflate enough, then they become another good basis hedging opportunity going into the spring and early summer building season. So those are the two things that I'm highlighting on the dating / marrying. And then on the dump side, I'm still going to beat this dead horse, but I'm just dumping stuff that's what I call old inventory or lengths that you don't need. If you're an inventory manager, if you're a distributor, or if you're a sawmill and you've got some shrapnel laying around, get rid of it. There's no excuse to just let it sit there and collect dust and turn gray. Just sell it. And I'm doing that. I'm down to like my very final few items on my list of things to get rid of here as we close out March, and I couldn't be happier. I sleep better at night knowing that I'll start April with a clean slate and all my dogs and cats are gone.
Hey, Matt, I want to highlight one thing. If you gave me a call last week, I think it was Friday night. You said you had a call from one of the mills thanking you for chatting about them.
I did. I don't know if I should repeat or not, but Dunkley was happy that I said some nice things about him. But honestly, it was heartfelt.
No doubt. It was a great comment.
I'm not on this deal. I'm not here to advertise for other mills or to try to gain favor that way. I'm just telling you my thoughts about the business, and that example just popped out of my head, but it's based on facts and me actually touring the place and meeting the people. And I do business with them too. And so I know what their culture is like. And that's what the whole discussion was about, was culture. So
No,
it's nice to know that
There's
people
no
pay
question
attention.
that you're like genuine and authentic. And I think that's one of the things that appeal to people that listen to the shows. They know you're like, it is what it is. You just let it all hang out there. It is what it is. I love that.
Well, thank you, Greg.
Yeah, it was pretty cool feedback. Greg, what's your what's your rotation this week?
I am married to Spruce MSR. We were able to get us, to develop a significant relationship. I like it because you basically buying it at a discount to the board, which is 2 and better, and it trades at a premium. And as we move forward over the next 60, 90, 120 days, that premium typically expands. It's actually widest in the fall. It's going to be hard for me to hang on to lumber that I get in May and in April and May until the fall. So I may be breaking up with it before she reaches her potential. Dating, I'm dating 2x4 16s, European spruce. Just fun to be out, party party regularly, day in and day out, a very liquid item. And it's moving to be a little undervalued. Obviously my question mark is going to stay undervalued due to the fact that, the Europeans love to ship 2x4 16s here, and it's a relatively good return. So that's a question. Matt, I'm with you. I was married to 2x4 104 and 5/8, and I thought we were partners for life, but she's been stepping out on me. And so I'm like going, yo, bitch.
We'll cut that one.
Is that not gonna make the podcast? Come on,
no, that's gonna be in there for sure. Yeah,
Dave's gonna leave that in.
Yeah, that's the good part.
It's super liquid item, but at this point, the kind of the overweight doesn't need to be there. Do I think it's going to sell off a lot? No, I don't. And multifamily could still come in and change my mind. It still is. It's still undervalued relative to the 2x4s, and it's undervalued relative to the hedge. But
right, there's a lot of production in 9-foot, right?
Yeah, and if I see 8-footers continue to move like up over 9s, that changes my feeling a little bit too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'll jump on to mine. Obviously we have a position at MSR. I'm married to it. I want to be married to it. I like it because it's the same price as 2 and better, or it mainly was, right? And we're starting to get some liquidity. I think with the way single family homes are moving right now, I think a lot of these component plants are really ramping it up. I don't think there's been as much crossover between pine and spruce. And I think some of these spruce plants are really eating up the MSR spruce. So I like that. I also like one thing that's kind of been, I like the short studs. I want to be married to them. I only own a small amount of them. Our mill makes them. We've been moving them at relatively decent numbers, and they're liquid. Again, some of them are going to truss plants and component plants. On the short stud side, dating 2x4 10s and 12s, and Southern Yellow Pine. Although I don't buy much Southern Yellow Pine, I'm looking for some places to put some of it, especially in the wides, just to test it out. And in dumping, I think I've said this 3 weeks in a row. I'm dumping 2x4 16s, not because I don't love them, but because everybody else loves them too. And they're still liquid. They still have good liquidity. You can move them like crazy. It's a lot harder to do anything with them when the price only moves like $20 and doesn't do much instead of the big moves we had over the last few months. So that's the one I'm working on. So Andy, I just wanted to follow up with you. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you and read more of your on your items every day? I know you do a lot of stuff on socials, but I see a lot of your stuff on LinkedIn. How do they get a hold of you? How do they sign up for HBS Dealer?
HBSDealer.com is a free site. We update it 12, 13 or more times per day with the fresh content. We put out a newsletter that's also free. If you went to HBS Dealer, you'll see in the top right corner, you can sign up for a newsletter. Comes out Monday through Friday with the top stories of the day, somewhere between 9 to 13 stories, as well as new products, most popular stories. And then we publish a Saturday, kind of a greatest hits recap newsletter. It's a little shorter, but it gives you, the 5 best stories of the week, the heavy hitters. And all of that's free content. You could sign up for it. If you're on the East Coast, it'll hit your inbox 7:30 in the morning every day, 6:30 Central Time. And that's it. There's no cost for it. And yeah, I share as much as I can on LinkedIn, but those are the 2 avenues to go.
Perfect. Well, that concludes this episode of The Lumber Word. Andy, it was great having you ride along with us. This was perfect. And we'll get this posted tonight and look forward to doing it again next week.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of The Lumber Word. The Lumber Word podcast is dedicated to engaging conversations about the lumber industry, including trading ideas, market trends, and evaluations of overvalued and undervalued assets. We wish to emphasize that the discussions and opinions expressed in this podcast are purely for informational and entertainment purposes. They should not be considered as financial or investment advice. We encourage our listeners to make their own financial decisions, taking into account their unique circumstances and financial goals, and to seek professional financial advice if necessary.